Well, we all survived the 60s, so what the hell? Moving right
He
along
put
here,
that on, did he?
call the Finance Committee to order for Wednesday, December 19th at 6:30 PM or thereabouts. Have a roll call. Well, we have Dominic, David, Stuart,
Pat,
Pat, Glenn, and Chairman Bernie Pigeon. We have any citizens who would like to participate this evening? Just raise your hand, jump right up and on. Thank you very much. Move on to the Finance Committee matters that we have scheduled this evening is the School Committee. They are having a lot of very proactive meetings and very transparent processes. And that being said, we are very interested in what is going on. I would like, though, to kind of just turn the order around a little bit, and that will cover the application for CPC Federation Preservation Funds, excuse me. And the School Committee is requesting permission to apply for CPC funds. And then when that is approved by CPC in the normal course of considering the articles, we will be seeing them again. So, on the floor, we have the application for the Community Preservation Act grant for the Anderson Field Track resurfacing, storage, and fence project. I saw in the package, you have a couple proposals from various vendors. Have you determined as yet which one you're going to choose so we can get an idea of the amount you're looking for?
I don't believe they have. I believe that he's waiting to speak to the Community Preservation Committee, just to discuss the entire project.
Okay. And
So a
what you
lot
see-
of the work that's in the application was done by Chris Gardner. He's the track coach, the winter and spring track coach at the high school. He's the one that, takes care of the track now.
So the information we've seen in the packet is all preliminary, and,
Yes. Well, he's done a lot of work.
yeah, but he's gathered that information for the purpose of the school committee making a final decision as to what they want to do and how.
I don't think it's up to the school committee, do you? I mean, it's up to community preservation.
Well, the school committee will be
It's a
approaching
school department,
CPC.
it's a school
The school
department.
department or school committee, you'll be approaching CPC,
Yes.
and then you'll be asking them for a
Yes.
specific
So it'll be
amount.
a conversation with them. What we'd really like to see done is a complete resurfacing of the track, fencing to protect the track, storage, which is all included in the application.
So the general condition of the track right now is more a case of just age versus lack of maintenance.
It's true, there's only so much you can do to maintain it. And some of the damage that has been done to it, I don't know if you've ever walked the track, but you go around the corner and there's just water. I mean, there's nothing to keep the water off of the track. So that part of it is just over time and water. And so that's why his application includes pieces that will, help protect a future track from that type of damage.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve permission for the school department to approach CPC.
So moved.
second.
Motion's made and seconded. Yes, Dominic?
Question, do we know what CPC fund that would qualify under? What, is it, they have different funds,
Well, it's community use,
community.
so that falls under that category,
I thought it was recreation.
or recreation. Well, it's community use.
Recreation.
Okay, so we under, and it falls in that category, fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Does everyone disagree? Anyone disagree? Or
No, they funded playgrounds in the past, they funded renovations at the
as long as
baseball
it-
field.
As long as it fits the requirements, I have no problem with it.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Bernie, that it is a community space. It's
Yes.
the school department, but it's definitely, it's used all the time by the community, every
Now,
day.
one of the issues in the items in your packet addressed or referred to, excuse me, the community using the facilities. But we have the wall here.
Right,
They use that whole area of the track and the like.
Relay for Life, there's so many things that go on there.
Indeed, there is. Yes, indeed. Mhm.
With the new fencing, will the community still be able to use the track facilities?
Absolutely.
Is it going to be locked?
I'm not sure about
I think what we're trying to do is to, you know, how they kind of jig the gates or the passageway in, to make it a little bit more secure so we don't see bicycles, or we saw a moped out there recently. We would just like people to walk on the track or run on the track and not use other motorized devices. And the way they would set up the fence would hopefully keep those pieces of equipment out.
Because it's wide open now.
But there'd be no way to lock it, to secure it, but also leave it available for the public.
That was my question. How do we do that? How do we
Yeah.
accomplish that?
Just trying to restrict the size of the access.
What is the public? It's not just Wareham, right? Anybody can use it.
Well, anyone can drive up there and use it, true.
Is there a sign up telling you not to use?
Oh, it says no bikes, no dogs.
It says
Yeah,
that.
it does, yes. Yeah, there's a sign right up there.
Any other questions?
I get one more. I think
Comments?
that
Yes.
they should, in the recreation part of CPC, they should probably look at what the balance is and what they're asking for, make sure that it's all, I don't think this is an outrageous project. I don't know what their balance is in that direct fund, but it might be something they might want to look at before you, I don't know what's in the recreational balance. They have certain funds for each
Yes.
item.
yes.
No, I
I
understand.
don't think this is an outrageous amount, so there's probably plenty, but it might be something you want to check before you put in your request.
Well, so Brian Litchfield has already been in touch about the application.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm sure that's something that they'll discuss.
Ironically, I was sorting through my papers as I do periodically, and I came across their latest accounting of what they have available in their funds, and yes, there's money there to do so.
Okay, great,
Yeah, but all you're seeking tonight is just permission to approach them.
absolutely.
Yep.
yes.
So on that issue, anything else?
Just a procedural question, why are we voting on their right to approach CPC?
That's
It's
the law,
in the
yeah.
charter,
Really?
yes.
Well, because the land that we're speaking about is owned by the town. Would we otherwise be here?
Well, even the land your buildings sit on was owned by the town, but I don't think it's specifically separate from the school system, is it? The field?
The track?
It doesn't really matter. Any use of CPC funds, they have to come to us first to apply.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I thought it was
the law.
because
The
it was
school
a
has
town.
to.
No, but I mean,
Anyone.
they have to come to, yes, but what they're doing.
Anyone who uses CPC funds has to come and get approval from us to go and apply.
And also
Absolutely.
from the selectmen.
Yeah,
And from the selectmen, yeah.
yeah. It's just
Can-
procedural,
can the
that's all.
charter-
I just always seen it on the warrants, but I just don't recall ever having to vote for anybody to actually go put in a
Oh, yeah.
request.
It's for one of the town departments,
Right, a town
has to
entity.
come through us. Otherwise, they're outside and they go directly to CPC.
Makes sense.
In fact, any department that approach the funds has to go to the selectmen to ask permission to ask for funds.
Okay.
Anything else? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous.
Thank you.
And as I'm turning this upside down, the order, our next issue is the school feasibility study. Everything has happened. Everything is final. At what point in time do you say the feasibility study is done and the building committee continues? Because like Sue has to close out her books for the feasibility study, and then we open up the 90 million for the building committee.
Are you asking us that question?
Yeah, do you know the date? It was kind of fluid yesterday.
Did we talk about it on Monday?
No, we didn't come up with the issue with that date, although it seemed, because Chad's contract was up, as well as Mount Vernon's, and we renewed their contract.
Mhm.
So now they're under the other funding.
It was my understanding that maybe there were just a couple of more bills to pay that qualified under the feasibility study. Is that?
Yeah, they would have to close out,
Yeah.
obviously.
There's no right now,
Um,
because we have December's, they fold
You do,
December's
yeah, so-
bills, yeah. I think they're pretty much done, we're just waiting, we need to pay them and then ask for the reimbursement.
Indeed. So I would suggest that Feasibility study's done,
Mhm.
and we're now in the building committee phase, the building phase.
Yes.
I found it very interesting that in the whole package, we seem to now be transitioning into a much different process. We were going forward, picking out colors, picking out material, et cetera. And last Monday, we started talking about actual monies and what it's gonna cost, how it's going, Michael was going on. But we're actually getting to the point where we're gonna break ground and we're all gonna get our nice polished shovels to do so. Are there any questions regarding that study, as well as going now?
Do we have an accounting of actually how much has been spent so far?
We do. I think there was a balance, Kim has the paperwork, but I think there was a balance of about
250, 240 something.
260. So we didn't spend the whole million.
No, there's 440 for Mount Vernon and 240 for BMA. That's what the contract was.
You guys want to actually see the breakout?
Well, if you just tell us also.
Yeah, yeah, you did that. You already did that. You tested this out to us. I know everybody lost it.
So the part that hasn't been spent, that was borrowed, so that goes to pay off that loan, is that correct?
I'm not sure if we actually did borrow the whole million or
No, we
not.
just-
I'd have to check. with the
Oh,
town
that's so
accountant.
rich.
More typically, well, yeah, they have, on paper, we borrowed $1 million, but we only spent so much of it.
We only spent, right, 738.
Yeah. The only technicality after you're through is we go down to resend the balance, because we want to relieve that commitment on our borrowing.
So you said you're not sure what we're going to do with the balance, or is it going
No,
back?
I mean, I don't know. It's
Will
gotta
you-
go
Will
back.
you find out?
Yes, I've got to probably talk to
Thank
town
you.
accountant or John Foster.
Yeah, it's not sitting on account. Any other questions regarding the feasibility/building?
I just hope the building part of it can come in as far under budget as this did.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
not a chance.
And it's ironic I noticed in the language of the article that was on town meeting floor, and I found it unusual, but it very specifically says the building committee now has control of $90 million. And that's when I referred to Jeff. He has to sign off on all the bills now.
Yes,
Because on the feasibility, it was the school committee, because they were the requestor.
right,
And now it morphs over into a building
into the
committee.
building committee itself.
But remember, we did say that Jeff will sign off, but then he will report to the building committee.
Oh, indeed, yes, but I mean,
Everything that
the
is
only,
spent.
for,
Yeah.
whether it be Sue's side of the house or the municipal side of the house doing the accounting,
Mhm.
his
There'll be a
signature has to
report.
appear on the bills to approval. And as we voted, it was going to be a batch approval versus individual approval by the committee itself.
In order not to slow down the payment.
Yeah, because we could have dozens of invoices due, and if we go through the process of approving them by each individual vote, we'd be there half the night and never get to the purpose of the meeting.
Right. I mean, my intent is get the warrant together, get Jeff to sign it, push it through, and then forward a copy to the whole committee. So then everybody can see what we spent it on,
Yeah.
You call that a warrant?
the warrant.
It's an accounting term.
And I heard from John Foster today about the various items we're going to need to collect for him to go out to borrow. So we've started pulling together. I think several items won't be available until after the first of the year, but, you know, we've started that process then as well.
How are you paying for removing and storing all the equipment that's still in the building?
Well, that's a very interesting question. We're right now going through and inventorying everything that's there. There's two groups. there's a group of furniture from the middle school that will need to be moved back to the middle school. Those items will need to be stored. The items that have been left from Minot are broken, out of date, not really usable. So we're building a list of surplus, which we will bring to the committee to have deemed. We're going to start reaching out to various agencies to see if anybody's interested in certain equipment. We would love to sell anything, but we would really like to make sure it goes to a home rather than a dumpster. What we do know is it needs to be cleaned out. We have about we're giving ourselves about a 3-month window to get all this done and get the building ready to be turned over.
No idea, I take it from your phraseology, as to who would absorb the cost of that.
Well, you mean as far as getting dumpsters and?
Now, it could be an expense for either the department itself. I'm not sure how it falls within the funds that are appropriated for the building committee, other than we have the razzing of the building, of course, and the mediation that's required.
Well, hopefully we'll sell some items and we can help offset the cost. Right now, because we are in the winter months, our fields and grounds guys cannot be out working on our fields and grounds, so we've been able to have them in the buildings a little bit to do some work when it's bitterly, a couple days it's been bitterly cold. And so we're just making use of the personnel that we have.
I would suggest to see if legally you can broadly interpret the monies from the feasibility committee, the balance of the funds, to perhaps cover those costs. Otherwise, you can just leave it in the building and the contractor who demolishes it will.
Yeah.
Part of
All
the
that.
demolition.
Yeah.
You know, that happened, I know, in Duxbury. They tried to give things away, no one wanted them. They ended up having it bulldozed over. Right now, we have 6 pianos. We've reached out to various agencies, nobody wants pianos. So we're not really sure what we're going to do with those. We have some kitchen equipment, servery pieces, stainless steel pieces that if we are not able to sell, we know that there's some area of food banks, food kitchens around. We would be hoping that they would need to make use of those and we could give them to some place that needs them. Anything valuable we've pulled out. There's a couple pieces that are permanently fixed on the wall. We're going to walk through with the architect and mark them because we want them taken out during demolition. We're getting ready to shut pretty much everything down. So we're not spending money on the building, heating something that we're not using, and however we can save as much money as we possibly can.
Can you use the backup generator over at Degas?
Well, you know, actually the generator, we're working on that. You know, when we look at all our capital needs, spending money on a generator that we're going to use for 2 years, we're really struggling with that. So we're trying to work something out with the company that services our generator to see if they can put a little switch. So if our generator goes down, we can just bypass that and rent a generator for the time and then put the money that we had earmarked for the generator back into HVAC. Where we desperately need some work.
Relevant to,
They probably had a lot of things to do with this building when the high school went up. I was here then too. So I don't think I was that involved in things that I could even share that kind of information. But I go back a lot of years here in Wareham and stayed involved in what was happening, so I remember that.
yeah. But I can understand why you're having difficulties telling it. I mean, that's why there's new businesses that are running storages, because no one has room in their own house for their own furniture, let alone buy some memorable pieces. If you can identify any initials on the bottom of those desks or something, maybe you can,
A couple years ago, we had a lot of surplus desks and chairs, et cetera, so we tried to have a sale. It cost me more in custodial fees to set things up than what we made, so we know that's not something that we would generate much income on. So if anybody has any suggestions, we would love to hear what we should do with all our desks and chairs.
we don't have any eccentric artists around that might want to use it for artwork.
We may.
We have a lot of empty buildings though that things have gone, people have moved out of, and, you know, what does he say about that? I mean,
I think you really have to
do you think he'd?
give a lot of thought to whether or not you really want to save it.
Right, if you want it, that's one thing. If you are not going to be using it, then we should get rid of it
Yeah.
Now, if you can't use it now, you're not going to use it tomorrow.
and find out if places
Because
like.
hopefully there's a
library-
building going up that's going to be all new.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, you know, we've already said to our faculty and staff, nothing old's coming into the building. We're just not going to clutter it up with,
And all the desks and everything you can't use in the middle or high school because they're short.
right.
You don't have little people up there.
The thing that really is kind of fascinating to me right now is the gym floor, and trying to see what we could do to save that, because it's the actual wood floor. And I would love to be able to pull some of that out, because I think that might be something we could sell.
Yes, good solid wood. I think we chose in the new building to, I believe we chose the wood floors because once they grow bad, all you have to do is go in, sand them down, and repaint them, and you don't have to replace the tile or whatever, long term.
But you have to balance the cost of taking out the wood floor in saleable condition versus what you can get for it as salvage material. And there may be someone who would come in and take it out,
Because there are salvage companies that look for that kind of stuff.
so. But I'm glad to hear that you're looking at those things. That's good. But we do have a few months before the contracts are let, before they're, the proposals are put out there and they're evaluated, and then the contracts are let. So, got a lot of work to do.
We do have.
Good.
From an accounting point of view, who's going to oversee the building committee's expenditure of this $90 million?
Us and, well,
Well,
well, yes, yeah, who is going to account for it? Your side going to, or municipal? Because it's a town meeting approval thing versus a request.
My guess, with the amount of money it is, that it will be both sides, just so there's more checks and balances.
Yes,
And then
indeed.
the OPM is definitely, like Chad will be, he'll go through all those bills as well.
But he'll report to the committee.
Right,
He
Yes.
obviously, as the OPM,
right.
the owner's project manager, is responsible for making sure that you stay within budget and everything else. But he's going to report to the committee. The committee's going to rely upon you, I'm sure, to take another look at it,
Mhm.
make sure that everything's good before they approve it.
Right.
No, you're right, we don't want to get 6 months down, or 2 years down the line and say, well, I thought you were checking.
yeah.
yeah.
So, let's make sure we have a defined line of responsibility.
We will.
We have 2 CPAs on this committee, so if you need any advice, I'm
But I think
sure.
what you just said is important. It's not just us, it's the project manager. You know, we've never built a school before, but he has. You know, he's.
But still, it's the committee
You
that's,
cannot
Oh, it
rely
is,
upon the project
absolutely,
manager.
absolutely,
right.
right.
Yeah, I know when,
Somebody's got to be watching it.
been there, done that. Any other questions regarding this issue? No? Good, thank you. And then we'll now, the budget. And we understand that this isn't the final issue, as far as your presentation to the selectmen as required by charter. And so it's just a preliminary discussion as to what we've heard thus far. We've been very proactive, very transparent in what you've done, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions.
Well, the school committee it is on the agenda tomorrow night to vote on the budget.
So, we have any questions that we've heard thus far in their presentations at all? We haven't been able to, all of us haven't attended their presentations.
Does everyone have the packet of information we gave out?
I believe, yes, Kelly's
Okay.
mailed it up, all those.
Oh, great.
So that's the number that's going in front of the school committee tomorrow?
So the actual number
Plus
is $29,262,246. So initially, it was a request of a 7.43, which raised some eyebrows, but we wanted you to see the true story of how, like the raw data of everyone that came forward and said, this is what we need. And then we obviously had to go through it and prioritize what we needed. The creative piece was, rather than start going and chopping everything away, we looked at other avenues of revenue, almost every extra piece of revenue we could find, in order to keep those requests, most of them in, and still be able to fund this without asking the town for a 7.43% increase.
Is the revenue a continuing year-over-year revenue, or is it a one-time event?
So, based on the worksheet, we projected that minimally the town would give us $200,000 towards the LEA. And then there's $400,000 in the capital free cash. We get Medicaid from the state, about $360,000 to $380,000 per year that typically the town keeps. But Dr. Shaverhood and Mr. Sullivan had a conversation and came to an agreement that we would get $50,000 of it back for this year, and then $50,000 back next year, and try to continue that going forward. And so that would give us $100,000 to put towards our budget next year for FY20. Circuit breaker, we're not going to touch any of our circuit breaker. That's our hopes this year. We've put somewhat of a freeze on our budget unless it's a real priority. So we're hoping not to touch any of our circuit breaker this year. We have about 786, and we're hoping that we can put 700,000 towards our next year's budget. If that number does not stay at 700 because of unidentified tuitions that have come in, unexpected tuitions, we also have next year's circuit breaker, which is another $700,000 or $800,000 that we could possibly make up the difference. So, I mean, these are reoccurring. The only one that's not reoccurring is the sped stabilization fund that I think we established last year or the year before, and we put $200,000 into that. So we're asking to utilize that as well. So that's how we we instead of cutting away at positions, because we're pretty thin now, we looked at different avenues of revenue. Most of them are every year. I mean,
So, as I went through this, the biggest increase is personnel.
so just rollover costs,
How much of that is just step increases and things like that?
1.2 million. Just to roll, the
Existing.
the contractual obligations.
Okay.
So we're already, looking at, if we're getting 200,000, just to roll existing staff is 1.2. So we got creative. There were a few reductions. We talked as a group, as an administrative group, and said, what can we live without? So we went through a couple of those. Removal of, there was a request to add 2 permanent subs at one of the buildings. Nobody's losing their jobs. We took away additions that we had requested. So there was the 2 permanent subs. There was 2 foreign language teachers with the IB program at the middle school. There was a half-time assistant principal that was in there as a request, but if we increase the dean, the person that's currently splitting that position would go back to being the half-time principal. So it really wasn't an add. And then there was a reduction as a group by schools. They agreed to reduce their budgets by collaborative $100,000 in supplies and materials or other expenditures. So each principal was sent back to kind of go through their budget lines one by one to see where they could squeeze out $25,000 per school. So that was pretty much how we got to the same number, actually. I mean, it's probably a 2.1% or 2.1 million increase overall, but we're not asking for that for additional funds from the town. We're looking at the 200,000.
Questions?
I just don't, I mean, I have a question. You said that you were looking at your revenue. Has anyone ever looked into people getting any revenue from like these cultivators that are coming into town? And there's another one that's applying now. You'll go to the town administrator, you know, these people are trying to, you know, come into Wareham. A lot of towns don't let them in, and they like to give away a lot to get access to the town. I mean, that will hit them up for $1 million or something. I don't know what the legality of any of that, but
Well, of course,
you might want to look into.
So it's my understanding that the state is opposed to towns doing what you're describing.
Only at resale, only at the resale level. This is just strictly cultivation.
yeah, we don't have any of that in town.
What's that?
We don't have any.
There's
any
two
of that in town.
applying. There's one guy downstairs now talking about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're gonna make huge money. I mean, I know that the town's gonna get a certain percentage of their revenue. But a lot of towns, like, certain companies come into town, they give the town an ambulance, you know, there are ways to turn the screws a little if they really wanna get in. And if the school is the most dire need of our town, that's where to try to,
I haven't
it's just
had
a
a-
revenue-seeking thing for you, that's all. I don't know how legal it is, don't go quote me on it.
Well, that's what I'm
but-
saying, I think that the state, I've read about it, and I've read that the state is opposed to towns, not, I don't know, schools, but towns, trying to make an extra profit from these companies.
Yeah, I think that's only a resale though right now.
Yeah.
That's a resale or medical, you know, the sale of direct. This is strictly wholesale, this is just strictly growing.
Yeah, there's 3 entities: growing, processing, and sale.
Yeah.
And they're all
Retail.
3 individually covered in the legislation. And I don't think,
I think
well,
this,
they are downstairs, as a matter of fact, I recall now, yes, it's
Yeah.
legal. And I'm not sure, I haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation with Derek as to how he is handling the revenues that may be anticipated from Life that's opening up. I think the 21st.
right, but that's,
And they've had to,
but that's a resale type of thing. This is no different than with the screws to that brewery that came in. This is no different, this is no sale to the general public.
well,
This is strictly an industry coming
You may not be able to
in.
condition them coming into the town on that, but you can certainly ask
All right,
and make it clear that things might be easier if they.
well, we actually have to concern ourselves, though, with revenues that we will be counting for FY '20. And we're in FY '19 now. Now, revenues from the retail establishments, we can count that in. Now, as I said, I haven't spoken with Derek as to how he is including that, and if he is, or if we can. But the others, the processing as well as the growing, you have to wait till that are in operation. But Dominic points out that they are required to make a certain lump sum payment to the town
to get in.
initially when they begin their delivery of services. Life has already paid us, I believe, a certain amount. I think it's about 30,000, and then have to be guaranteed another. But when the revenue's counted, I don't know,
Well,
and that's
I
an
would
issue.
suggest that you look for things that you want that are specific. Most companies don't like to just turn cash
Cash,
over,
right,
but they
like-
might be very happy to buy some very expensive piece of technology.
yeah, because we got that ambulance that one year from that
Yeah.
company, you know, that's something, you
Because then
know.
they can stick their name on it, they can talk about it.
Or name the auditorium.
Yeah,
or
right,
gym.
yeah, exactly. Those kinds of
I can just see your plaque now. Kurt,
Hey.
cannabis.
Listen, they're gonna pay the bills, I don't care what you call it, it doesn't bother me.
But it's a good point.
Exactly.
There's a ton of money in that business.
Yep.
Ton. And we're only limited to a certain amount. by legislation. So it might be an idea.
Because a lot of towns aren't letting them come to their town. If we're gonna let them come to their town, I believe we should take every benefit we can get from it.
The only, did you have any more questions?
No.
The Medicaid reimbursement that you anticipate, typically, as you pointed out, it goes into the general fund as it's paid to. But doesn't that appear in your request anyway, because the reimbursement is asking for services the school department has delivered, correct? So we didn't,
We don't normally get the reimbursement. It's different.
not directly, but indirectly, you get it through your appropriation off the floor of town meeting, do you not? In your total request, it supports your services, which in turn from the general fund is supported by the reimbursements. So it's an indirect support, is it not?
I don't believe it is. I might be wrong, but I don't believe it is.
Well, you're saying that it's included in what's appropriated to the school.
You're asking for X number of dollars to deliver services.
Yes, but it's not broken down. I
No,
know.
no, it's not specific,
Yeah.
but it is, excuse me. The school does receive it indirectly,
I suppose.
because you're supporting the services you're delivered in your budget, which when you apply are reimbursed into the general fund.
But this is money that is specifically reimbursed for services that are provided by the school and then goes back to the town.
But for example, last year, or this fiscal year, you provided those services. You paid for them out of your existing budget.
Yes.
Correct.
And we appropriated that monies
We
But
appropriate.
I don't believe
into
it's
your
a,
budget to
Not
reimburse you.
specifically.
I don't believe it's a
Yeah.
line item that comes back exact, though.
No.
No, it's
No,
not a
it's
line
not in
item
your
that comes
budget as a
exact
line
back.
item.
If I read it right, I
Just
don't believe it's a
the
line
cash is
item
there.
that comes back.
Appropriated over by town meeting. Also, I'm not comfortable with appropriating free cash for operations. I've never been a fan of that because
Not
it
fine.
requires a repeat. Because now you have a budget that is sustainable with those appropriations. In the following year, you now have a budget that goes, added that percentage, which would be inclusive. Let's say your FY '20 budget has 4,000 of anticipated free cash. Now, the closed-out number of your budget, you're going to request that as your bottom line, plus what you need for your increases. That bottom line from FY '20 includes 400,000 free cash. So it's going to have another free cash inclusion to continue that support.
I think we went over this when we approved it last year.
Yeah,
This-
one of the
Precisely,
things,
this was built in forever. This was not a one-time ask. I specifically raised that.
Did you?
Yeah.
yes, one of the things that we've done over the last several years is pull out one-time expenses, capital items that this money has gone for. Unfortunately, we're reaching a point with with our high school and middle school, we need to do some much more intensive work than $400,000 will allow us with some HVAC and some other repairs. By pulling this out, it gives us an artificial budget. Because we've lost basically these charges out, so when you pull them out, it's less than what we really need to operate. Now, if you ask us, and this is a debate that we have all the time, if you ask us, do you want to lose the money, period, so you have your budget where it is, of course we do not. So every year we pull the capital pieces out, and if we're lucky enough to have town meeting appropriate the 400,000, then we're able to do capital cost, capital repairs, and the cycle continues. At some point, we would love to be able to go to capital planning and say, these are the capital projects that we need to have completed. It's going to cost X amount of dollars. We would love to have that done, and then we wouldn't be coming to ask you for this $400,000 in capital.
On capital planning, if you have a large number of capital projects or a large capital project perhaps like HVAC, it should go to capital planning.
Mhm.
And if need be, it can be bonded and paid for that way. That's what we did with the school buses. We've done that on other projects also.
I'm
High school
hoping,
roof, I believe, was another one.
I'm hoping to visit the capital planning committee in January and talk about some capital projects that we need to have completed.
Good, but those would not come out, capital should not come out of the appropriation. Should not be an appropriation as such.
See, I'm an advocate of getting you out of the business of maintaining your buildings, because they're capital projects of all of these issues. And I think that should be, as David has said, we can support it on a borrowing side through capital planning versus you're doing it out of your budget, expense budget. And I don't think you should be in that business.
Well,
I misspoke earlier, it was a 200,000 for sped that was built in.
Hmm.
That it's not a one-time thing, it's gonna be
Yeah.
every year.
Well, the SPED is, stabilization fund is written to, the town can appropriate it on a yearly basis, and they use it the following fiscal year. So if we wrote it in April, they can use it in that fiscal year. And that was a purpose, because they have someone coming in that needs extraordinary needs, and they have to go off-site, and it wasn't
Wasn't planned.
anticipated, no.
And I believe they have to go through the selectmen in order to use that
Yes,
money.
they do.
It's true. And last year it was not used, so it was the whole full year, so it's not every year that it's used.
And I think actually you can appropriate up to a maximum of a certain percentage, I can't remember what the,
It's a certain percentage of your budget.
yes. 200,000 fell far short.
I was just gonna say, and this is a much smaller number.
Mm. Kind of a different one. What was the savings you experienced closure of Minot for the fiscal year that we're in?
You know, I ran those numbers, I don't think I brought them with me, but we were close to about $900,000 when you looked at all expenses that we had associated with it. Now, some got transferred, you know, some costs were now seen over at the middle school, but we're also looking at, once we close the Minot building, there's going to be a little bit more additional cost savings.
But your current net, even with the expenses of going to Degas and middle school, is around 900,000. So you absorbed a number of increases in operation in your proposal through that 900,000.
We did, well, we made a number of reductions too in staff. When we cut some positions last year when we merged the buildings. Not actual people, but positions, because we had a number of retirements. So the decision when we were able to combine the buildings, we were able to share some staff that we wouldn't normally have been able to share.
But in your overall budget, it's around 900,000. So in addition to the increase you were requesting, you were able to use that 900,000 in your operating costs. I mean, you can't save it, you're not allowed to put it in a savings account or a bank or something. I'm sure you covered a lot of other costs internally.
But it's not a direct savings.
No, it's indirect. You're not
It's
paying for
indirect,
oil or
right.
gas
So,
or
I mean, there
electric.
are, out of that 900,000, there's gonna be expenses that, by closing Minot, it shows that expense, but there's also added expense from Deacon's and middle school that's gonna offset that number. So that number, that 900,000 is a fictitious number.
Well, it's,
Not all of it.
No,
because
I
that-
didn't say it all was, I didn't say it all was, but no one can really come up with that exact number right at the moment,
I'm not
correct?
alluding
Not till
that-
time goes
yeah.
on, correct?
Right, you know, and the other piece is that we know as we move forward into this building project, we're saving X amount of dollars because we did move the students out. We're able to get, build on the same site, and we're able to build much faster because we will not have students on that property.
Yeah, our reimbursement was greater because they'll reimburse us for the razzing of the building, where if we chose an alternative site, open field, so to speak, we'd have those two buildings sitting there for,
Oh, it could be a
Cover.
great expense, I understand that.
and when I say you netted out the 900,000, I'm not trying to suggest that you had a separate account that had 900,000 in it? No.
No.
I'm just saying you covered your expenses with that, and that's all there. So the cost that you would have spent operating Minot still is covering some of the increases that you're experiencing within the budget you're projecting.
Yes.
And,
If anybody understands that, please tell me.
well, you know, and probably the biggest savings for us was able to share staff, because that's our largest cost. And because we had moved people and have people in 2 buildings that were in 1, we've been able to cover positions, thus eliminate positions.
Now, you've got at least minimum of 2, maximum of 3 years with the configuration you're doing now. Is there any use for those portables as you hope to get?
Well, you know, we only bought 1. We're only renting 1 portable. We kept squeezing and moving and relocating staff, and so we do not have any students in that portable that we're presently leasing. So I think we're paying a total of $17,000 for 3 years
Yes.
for modular. Because we made the division that we did, we didn't need to, we kept working the problem, and we did not need to purchase those modulars. Had we stopped when we said we needed them, then yes, we would have used them, but we kept working the problem. Once we're finished with that modular, because we leased it, it's going back.
It's just used for office space.
That was, that was your intent. You came down, you were gonna put children in on it.
No,
So the roughly $900,000 of savings when the new building goes up is whatever the budget can automatically increase by that 900,000?
well, we
Or
hope
more?
not, no. And that's one thing that we're having conversations about now. How do we plan for the future when we do open the buildings? Because that's something that we really need to examine. What I can't have happen is the budget just to explode on
Right.
different costs, because we just can't support that. So we're gonna have to really work to plan out the strategy moving in the next 3 to 4 years, budgetarily, how we keep our costs contained when we move to the building. So we're very aware of that.
That's a problem
Yeah.
in the town of Plymouth when they built their first new high school. They didn't have enough money to open it. They couldn't staff it. For 2 years, it sat empty. So we do not want that to happen.
No, that will not happen.
Good. I'm sure it won't.
I think it's of necessity that we have the expectation and that the budgets, as they're principally advancing now, both municipal and school, it's quickly running as unattainable. We just can't afford to run the town. We'll just have to close the doors because, as you say, just your costs of opening that new school, and that's just operational costs. That doesn't mean the additional staffing you're gonna need to man it and all. But then again, on the municipal side, we have our problems on that side also that we have to address. I think we all have to understand what we're doing is not a stopgap, but we're struggling to doing what we're trying to maintain the level of services we have. Adding to them is just impossible.
But you know, you're looking at something in the future, there's also, you can say that we're gonna have a lot of added expenses without saying that we're gonna be adding a lot of revenue also. I mean, it's hard to predict the
We hope.
future. It's hard to predict the future. You're predicting the future on one end and not the other.
Indeed, but I would say
Okay.
our prediction of the costs are more reliable than the prediction of our revenues.
Well, you can say that, but.
Well, I think it's.
Now,
I think
Dominic,
historically expenses
obviously
have
you
gone up
have a
a lot
couple
faster
hundred
than
acres
revenue.
available that you're
it's
looking
not
to.
that. I just see, I don't know, maybe I'm more of an optimist. I just see a lot of industry coming in, I just think that, if the administration does the proper things, I believe that, our revenue could increase tremendously.
There's a lot
Let's hope
of
so.
potential.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so, indeed. Do we have any other questions? We will be seeing these lovely people again
Tomorrow night?
in the spring.
Well, I thought there's something tomorrow night, the 20th, am I wrong?
Tomorrow night's a school committee meeting.
School committee meeting.
Right.
And they're gonna approve their
You're all
budget.
welcome
That's
to
gonna
You're
be
gonna
good.
be present, we don't need to be present, no?
No, I think they can handle that without.
All right, I just asked the question.
Bernie, you have to go.
To the school committee meeting? Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Sue. Always looking out for my back, aren't you?
I have one other question, I don't know if anyone can answer it, I'll ask them out there. So the new school and everything, down the road, 4 or 5 years, do you expect a budget decrease because of this new school, or you believe it'll be more level? You'll be able to operate at the rate you're operating now? Do you see a drastic change in any of that with the new school?
As far as the energy efficiency, et
No,
cetera?
as far as bottom line.
Well, I think that we're gonna stay on par with what inflation and the cost of energy, the cost of just the maintenance. If I could freeze everything right now, and so I would see no cost increases when I went to order supplies or when I pay the electric bills or et cetera, then absolutely. But I can't forecast what.
It was just a question, I understand that.
We can run some numbers.
Your supplies, do you come out of a central office within your organization? Do you come out, is there a central location where the supplies come out of, delivered to each individual school, or they go direct from your supplier to the school?
It goes directly to the school. Most of it does.
And one reason is we have no place to store if we buy
In bulk.
in bulk. So we buy off the state bid list to get the best possible price we can. But if we had a storage facility, then we certainly would be buying in bulk.
Because I noticed that the line items in the budget, you're still running the 4 schools, and it's appropriated, the paper and everything is appropriated differently.
So they're using the Walmart process, where the supplier comes in and delivers to each individual store. So Walmart doesn't have to store it. In fact, at
Storage
Walmart-
costs money.
Storage costs money. In fact, at Walmart, they put it on the shelves.
Yeah.
So,
And in Walmart, they don't pay for it until they sell it.
that's
What a
right.
marketing plan.
That's an accounting process the school cannot use.
Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to say to us in the interim? Looking forward to seeing you again in January or February.
Good luck tomorrow,
Yes, we'll just say thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
and have a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, you too.
I didn't bring my fudge
Walmart
with
has
me.
a very interesting financial, every store reports back to headquarters every night with everything that is sold, everything they need.
Their financials is something pretty good to read. I have to talk about this year.
There are a couple of things that I think we really ought to think about. I think we ought to get
This year, wait a second.
the school, town, whatever, to spell out in writing what the oversight process of this spending of this $90 million is gonna be. Who's gonna be doing the accounting of that? Who's gonna report to who? Who's responsible for what? Because if we don't do that, it's not going to happen, and that's a lot of money.
Good point.
Yes.
And I would get it in writing, so that we could have, an auditor type person look at it and say, yeah, this is good business controls.
Yes.
I mean, it has to pass that.
I think what we could do, Alice and Jerry are 2 CPAs, and ask them to put together a rough set of protocols
That's fine.
that we can present to,
I just don't know how the town operates or who does what, but
well, the committee itself has the exclusive authority to spend the money. Excuse me.
I understand.
And the meeting I was at, Monday, we were discussing some of those issues, because I was concerned about it. Not to tell you a long story, I was involved in a building, and
Everybody's
it was
been involved in
mismanaged.
what- Everybody's
and
been involved in that.
Yeah,
That's
and it
why-
was mismanaged and all, and we had to shut it down and all. And that was, I was concerned, but that was pre-MSBA. MSBA has very strict guidelines that they have to follow, but there's also what I look at as the internal
Yeah.
guidelines of the committee. And one of the issues was that we were, as Sue had mentioned, a warrant. There's gonna be a lot of invoices coming. And I mentioned, brought up, everybody should have a copy of those before they're voted. Not when they walk in the meeting, but they bring it with them.
Just need to make sure there are good financial controls, because we only do an audit once a year. It's actually a year and a half to 2 years behind, and it's not gonna do us any good.
Right.
So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think the school committee ought to seriously think about putting together either of its own members or get members of the public who are good with numbers to do precisely what we were talking about, to forecast out probably, 5, 6, 7 years of what the cost is going to be. Nobody knows exactly what's gonna happen, but you can make assumptions. You can make a range of assumptions and see if it's this, we're toast, or if it's, and we better start doing something about it now.
Almost like a long-term planning type of
You
thing.
can't,
Yes.
we can't open this school and find out it's gonna cost us $2 million more. Because the same thing will happen.
That was kind of the question I asked.
$40 million
Yeah,
I was trying to ask that
specific
question,
and
yeah.
everything.
Well, that
Right,
was an excellent question,
right.
because it's almost like it's the elephant sitting in the room. I'm coming on with this huge, you're running 3 buildings now.
Right.
I'm putting a 4th one on. I don't care how energy efficient it is.
Oh,
It's still gonna cost money.
Done things. I think we need to do that,
I
and we
thought-
should be looking at that.
But the bottom line, they came to this, to do this was supposed to be a savings. Now, hear me out, that was the assumption they threw at us all, that by doing this will save us in the long run. That's why I kind of asked her, what do you foresee in the future? She kind of bounced around that she doesn't know her expenses, I understand that, but it still should have a number on it, like 5 or 6%, or there should be some, like you said, if you had a long-term plan, you could have come up with a 6 or 7% savings by doing this project. Something like that should have been done, that's
Well,
my
we
opinion.
have the time to do it now. If we have to make adjustments before the school opens, we've got time to do it. But we're not gonna be able to do it when that thing is built, when it's
Right.
ready to go.
But one of the things you're looking at is you are taking the operational, the maintenance, the utility cost of 2 existing schools, and you're combining them into one.
Right.
So the additional, there should not, we hope there'll be no additional cost in
But it
that
shouldn't cost the
area.
same either, Dave.
But
No,
you-
it won't.
Let me just give an example. They're sharing staff now because they put them together in school. What's gonna
Right.
happen?
When they split them up again.
Right. And, personnel is 50, 60% of the budget.
Well, theoretically, if, when they closed Minot and brought staff here to the middle school and over to Deacon's, I'm curious, let's say the maintenance staff, custodial staff, did they lay them off? Because now there's custodial staff already at Deacon's and already at the middle. Do they need extra people? Why are they holding these people for the next 3 years until the new school opens and just bring them
Well,
over
they said they
here?
cut staff, so I don't know what
They
that
cut
actually
staff,
meant.
yeah.
They just didn't fill retired positions, and people who left, they didn't fill them. I don't think they actually cut
Ooh,
staff.
that's what she said, right.
But all this,
But, Derek, my understanding is 5 years ago, came up with a 5-year
Mhm.
forecast, and it all came true. So, and it
talk-
wasn't a good picture, because we didn't pass that override, and this is what's
Right.
gonna happen. So we need to do the same
So
thing.
Stu, what are you saying, we should go to the administrator and have him make a committee? Is that basically what you think should be
I think the
done?
school committee and the town should.
I think by letting the school committee do that, the wrong issue. It needs to be a
Somehow,
separate entity.
somebody ought to
It needs
do
to be
it.
a separate
they
entity.
have to be a partner to it.
Yeah, they
Is it-
do.
Oh, they can be part of it, but it shouldn't be stand alone with them.
No, no,
No, no,
no.
no.
I
but-
don't think
but
you get the truth.
But
No,
I think we
didn't mean
need
it
to
that
start
way.
now. It's not easy to do, but we've gotta do it.
Very right.
What I'll do is, I'll dig out my copy of the 5-year plan, and I have our budgets going back to '04, if you want to have the whole thing. So you make the comparison that what they projected is what actually happened. I'll get that out and all, but I think the 5-year plan was developed internally. I'll talk to Derek about it. And I think you're right. It's going to be a large cost, because you're not going to open that building and say, oh, it's saving money. Yes, it's saving money. It's still a huge building. It's got all new
Despite what
equipment
they
in it.
said, this $900,000 they fell into and are spending, even though they don't have those costs, they're spending it on something else. However much of that they gotta pay because of the new arrangement, there's $500,000 there. In 5 years, that's gonna be $1 million.
Well, the savings that I think they,
And where's that gonna come from?
you know, I think the savings, and it's just my supposition, or excuse me, not my supposition, that they maintained or retained a lot of staff that when they went into the middle school in Degas, if you look in the budget, they're still running Minot. So that staff is still assigned to Minot. And they came in, they didn't lay off a lot of teachers because now of larger class size, you're reducing the number of classes. They still got the same.
But if that's still, if they're still in the budget, then that's not part of a $900,000 savings.
That's
If
where-
they're still employing those people.
Mhm.
So, but basically what I would wanted to say was, I'm not sure, if they have a $900,000 savings, their budget is still going up by millions of dollars. That's almost $1 million that they saved, and they're still asking for
That's my
a
point.
large increase.
That's a
Where is
2%
it?
increase.
That's where I don't believe it's a true 900.
No, but it's something. And it's a-
Right,
it's
what
a
it is,
big
I
number.
don't have put a finger on it.
Unless they didn't do anything, there's some savings there. There has to be.
It could have been just a
Yeah.
paper shuffle, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it has to be, a bottom line question has to be, okay, you're running 4 buildings. Now you're running 3 buildings. Why isn't there a significant savings showing up?
Well, they just absorbed, whatever the savings was, they absorbed into their budget.
Hmm.
We never saw it.
And ask for more, and
Exactly,
ask for more.
exactly.
And the only way they can maintain that, because they can't give it back, for one, they would not do that, and they can't put it into a savings account to use for the following year, they have to spend it, which they did.
But
My
there's no
theory is they
corresponding
spent it by
reduction.
retaining staff.
Well, I assume.
Well, the middle school, let's say if you got 10 custodians over there. Now you bring in the custodians from Minot. Now they have 12, 13. If you had 12 maintaining that 1,000 square foot building, whatever it is, do you really need 3 more? But if you keep them for 3 years,
It'll
which
be
you
like
didn't need
they've
to
always
begin
been
with,
there.
and now, right, so now when you open the new school,
They're gonna have to hire for the new school, those people are gonna stay right where they were.
Isn't
possibly.
that what I just said earlier, when I was talking about the high school went and went up?
Yeah,
And this was the high school? I was here for that. My daughter was going here for high school. She's in her 50s now.
I was gonna say you're dating yourself, honey.
Oh, I am, I'm older.
do you still have the budget that you would,
I don't know, I'm gonna start looking through my old paperwork.
If we don't plan this out, we're gonna have a problem when this building opens.
Well, why don't we ask Derek
and
to
you're right,
put that
now's
crew
the time to
together?
start thinking about it.
Get Derek to do that, ask him if he'll put that committee together.
Yeah, he can do it, there's
Yeah.
no question, he knows how to do it.
They did it,
He's good with numbers.
and it's amazing how accurate they were
Yeah,
in their projections.
well, you know, you can argue about the assumptions, but at least have an idea what's gonna happen.
Right.
So it's not a big surprise. It's just the magnitude of the surprise, that's all.
And I think it's legitimate that the finance committee be proactive in that area.
Definitely.
At least a couple of them.
And Jeff is gonna continue on as chairman of the building committee, and
Because I suspect that the current arrangement of the school committee and the superintendent will be quite different when this building opens, or there's a good chance it'll be.
There's a good chance.
And
Yeah.
so I think, I don't know what the incentive is for these people to ensure the future works, as opposed to just getting this thing done and opened.
The other way to put it is, have they really planned for the future? That's the key.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes. So,
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
do
The
we
vote?
want to do the minutes?
We didn't do the minutes, but I didn't want to stop everything.